And on today's video,
that instead of time moving forwards, time actually moves backwards. This was the work of John Mbiti, one of Kenya's and Africa's greatest philosophers. And in 1969, he wrote something that completely reimagines the way we think of African time.
Below the equator, the lower side of the equator, the southern hemisphere. And right now in this world that we are living in, we know that power is moving, power is shifting from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. And this is because the North Pole is also actually shifting towards Siberia. Na msidani hapa hivi naambia vitu zenye haziko. Wacha nikuonyeshe. Welcome back manze to the Radar Files. I am your host kama kawa. Yo frate. Manze, it is the bitter things in life that matter, and the bitter pill you are going to swallow today is about time. Kuna mdema hapa hivi nimepata online. Hebu tusikie anadai aje. Before we start it, nataka tu niseme hivi. If you're not somebody who is interested in learning, manze, click away. This video is not for you. But if you want to change your perspective and if you want to think about life differently, stick around because we are going to debunk and even tackle some misconceptions zenye watu wanajuanga about time on this video. And without further ado, tunaanza like this.
What if I told you that for many African societies, the concept of the future doesn't exist? And
pause. Hii video tunaenda tukiona hivyo because it is very crazy. Hapo hivyo ameshasema the concept of the future in very many African societies does not exist. I am going to tell you why she's talking about it like this, because the person she is reading from alitoka from a certain region in this country Kenya. So acha endelea alafu tuta nini, even though we are going to pause many times.
That instead of time moving forwards, time actually moves backwards. This was the work of John Mbiti, one of Kenya's and Africa's greatest philosophers. And in 1969, he wrote something that completely reimagines the way we think of African time. Mbiti says time is a two-dimensional phenomenon with a long past, vibrant present, and virtually no future.
Umesikia? Time is only constituted of the present and the past. The future, there is no future. Do you agree with that? If you actually agree with that, let me know down in the comments below, because I totally disagree with it.
Using Swahili words, he describes the two dimensions of time. The first one being sasa, the now, the recent past, and the immediate future which can be experienced. The second dimension is zamani. Zamani is the vast, endless past where all events eventually go on to live forever. But the future, in African thought, it barely exists.
The future barely exists. So kuna zamani na kuna sasa. Future by the way itaitwaje? Let me know what you think. What is the what name in Swahili denotes the future? Because the past ni either zamani ama kitambo, alafu the sasa ni now, the future baadaye ama inaweza kuwa baadaye. I think it's actually baadaye ama crazy. Let me know what you think.
Because time is made up of events. Time has to be experienced in order to be real. So because we can't conceptualize events tied to the distant future because they haven't been experienced yet, then therefore the future cannot constitute part of time.
So, because you cannot experience the future, then the future cannot be termed as part of time. John Mbiti manzi alikuwa ameiva kigani kiwalai. Inakaa hapa hivi alikuwa anatu confuse. And before she continues, let's figure out who she's talking about. So nimeingia hapo hivyo kwa search engine yangu, nikaiuliza who the F is John Mbiti? Angalia hapo, hiyo ni picha yake. Wikipedia says John Mbiti was born on 30th November 1931 in Mulango, Kitui County, Eastern Kenya. His parents were two farmers, Samuel Mutuvi Ngangi, goddamn, anaitwa almost kama mimi, and Valesi Mbandi Kimba, what? He was one of 6 children and was raised in a strong Christian environment. his Christian upbringing encouraged his educational journey through the African Inland Church. He attended Alliance, and the Kamba in me is actually coming out. He attended the Alliance High School in Nairobi and continued his education and University College of Makerere, where he graduated in blah 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 soma hapo. Mbiti father is in the US, manzi akapata Bachelor of Arts. Tunajua watu wa BA mnafanyanga nini kwa hizi institutions and Bachelor of Theology. So unaona hapo hivyo, Christian Liberal Arts and School in Rhode Island. He then earned his Doctor of Philosophy in Theology. Umse alisoma mbaya. So hivyo ndio inajaribu kutuambia. So if you don't know who this guy Mbiti is, so Mbiti used to look like this. This is Mbiti. Mbiti. Unajua Mbiti? Mbiti actually means hyena in the Kikamba language. He was actually a hyena. Welcome to the valley of the hyenas. Tunajuaje kwa tukanganya hapa hivi na maneno ka rapa. So Mbiti was actually a very learned person. As you can see, this guy alisoma hapa hivi mtaani, na after amesoma hapa mtaani alienda pia akasoma huko hivyo nje, huko hivyo Mayolo. So I think he was very much influenced by the African Inland Church. Na unajua kanisa ilikuja kutufanyia nini sisi kama Africans? The church was meant to soften us. Ama ni to acha nitumia wadenye wanapenda kutumia. The church was meant to civilize us. And if people are civilized, they can easily be integrated into a certain system. So this guy I think yendo alikuwa anatuingisha kwa hiyo system sasa vizuri. But before I give you my 2 cents completely, acha udeme endelee kubonga tusikie anadai aje.
And this is why, according to Mbiti, African languages, at least the East African Bantu languages that he studied, don't have a word to describe the distant future. In African time, according to Mbiti, events create time. Seasons, ceremonies, a conversation, those moments produce time, and people produce as much time as they need. An example that Mbiti uses from the communities that he studied is that a year is measured based on 4 seasons, 2 dry seasons, 2 wet seasons. So a year is only over when those 4 seasons have taken place. So a year could take 365 days, 390 days. It doesn't matter the number of days in a year. What matters is that the 4 seasons have taken place. And this is in contrast to the Western view.
I think that's what most African traditional cultures think. That is how we always denoted our time, even though wenye tulikuwa tuna keep track of time using the seasons. And if you ask me, that is how nature intended it to be. History ya mathematics ni kitu yenye human beings wali come up nayo. Now, I'm not saying that mathematics is a bad thing. Mathematics actually tries to be precise about how we are going to live in these cities that they were created for us. Iyo, iko bado in the same category na hizi stories of science and hizo vitu zote. They are just trying to pinpoint us to a particular direction. But other than that, venye ukienda ulize African societies, they are going to tell you that whatever we see and whatever is in our immediate environment is what reality is. But if you ask other systems around the world what reality is, reality cannot be an idea. Reality iwezi kuwa a symbol. Uwezi sema ati reality is based on these terminologies. Reality is just being. No one can actually describe what reality is, but we can actually experience reality with our senses. So the ideology of the future, hapo hivyo ndo kwenye think anajaribu kuexplain akisema the future does not exist because we cannot experience the future. Even though I'd like to differ on that, na my differing point ni ati whenever you project yourself towards attaining something, I think you are already experiencing the future. Now, if you are in the present moment and you actually make the right choices and move in the right way for you to experience that thing that you had initially thought of, yenye unataka kuachieve or something, then that will actually be you experiencing the future. So this is where I think this John Mbiti actually falls short in his philosophical idea, because we can act, it is the imagination that creates the future. Yes, the senses are attuned to the present and the past, but the imagination is attuned to the future. At least that's what I think. What do you think? And I'm going to give you something even more explanatory as to why Mbiti was using this as his ideology. Wacha kwanza udema malize ni nini anasema.
Towards time, where time is a commodity, something that can be spent, saved, wasted, or lost. And according to Mbiti, this is why if foreigners come to Africa and they see people sitting under a tree, they would remark that, okay, why are these people wasting so much time?
Sitting under a tree. Huyo sini adi Buddha Selikos ana sit under a tree. Even Isaac Newton, the one who an apple fell onto his head, he was sitting under a tree. Na hapo hivyo ndo kwenye revelations mingi zinatokeanga, si ndio? So
But in African thought, that sitting under a tree is not wasting time. It's either waiting for time or producing time. For me,
sitting under a tree is either waiting for time or producing time. So, if you are going to produce time, see, that's the future. See, hey, Mbiti bana.
Me, I think this Western idea of time as a commodity is what drives this Western obsession of progress, development, and some promised future. And this difference shapes everything from politics, economics, to how we live our daily lives. Because in African thought, the golden age isn't in the future, it's actually in the Zaman. According to Mbiti, the future is only a shadow until it comes to the present, and then it flows into the Zamani.
The future is a shadow until it comes to the present. Then it falls back into the Zamani. The future is a shadow. Mbiti man. Umse. Iki ni kigani manzo liko umechoma walai. Ai.
So in that way, time moves backwards. We are not the ones who move forward into time. So, of course, Mbiti wrote this from a theological point of view because he was trying to explain the nature of African religion. But my main takeaway from the parts of the book that I've read is that unlike Western cultures and religions with end-of-the-world myths, African time has no end. Seasons, years, birth, marriage, death, it's all a cycle. Asante kwa kutazama, tafakari hayo, and I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, 100%. In African traditional cultures, manze, time, it is a cycle. In fact, I previously met with my grandfather and he actually told me something very, very wise. Aliniambia, in this life, when people incarnate in this life, you are given a knot. And your knot, sinajua knot ni kitu imekuwa tied. As you grow up, this knot continues to untie, until ufike time yako ya kutoka kwa hii dunia, then the knot completely unties and the string becomes whole again. In short, Miss Jui nitaisema aje, alisema hivi na Kikuyu, in this life, itasema aje wale na Kikuyu, omodo aheago gikundo gyake na gya kudokae neko uga dikosi yake ni cia kinya. I thought a lot into it and even mo explain hapo hivyo ndio Kenya alikuwa anasema. Aya, as we are talking about it, you have realized that John Mbiti, he was actually talking more about time being a backwards kind of thing. And hii ni kusema time venye tunaiona, it is actually, unaona venye saa ina moving tick tick tick, that one is actually negative. Kwa sababu ukiangalia after 12, what do Africans call it, ama what do we call it in Swahili? After 12 ikichora number 1 tunasemanga ni saa saba. The opposite of that, Do you actually get it 12 imefika, alafu iende 1 tutaita saa 7. Ikifika 2 hatutaita saa 2, tutaita saa 8. Why? Because Africans actually followed the way the Bible actually tells people to follow. Ama ni the Bible ilicopy African societies. Design yenye, when the sun sets, after the sun sets and 1 hour passes, that becomes the first hour of the next day. Sun ikiset 1 hour iishe, hiyo ni first hour of the next day. So unasikia hapo ndio saa 1 inaanza. Then after the next 60 minutes inakuwa saa 2. Unacheki? That's what I have seen yenye ina happening kwa hizo manini. Haya. Another thing I'd like to remind you ni history ya the Coriolis effect. Because John Mbiti was actually living below the equator, the lower side of the equator, the southern hemisphere. And right now in this world that we are living in, we know that power is moving, power is shifting from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. And this is because the North Pole is also actually shifting towards Siberia. Na msidani hapa hivi naambia vitu zenye aziko. Acha nikuonyeshe. Yes, the Akamba region, Ukambani in Kenya, is located south of the equator. Kenya is on the equator, but the Akamba people's primary homeland in countries like Machakos, Makueni, and Kitui lies in the southern part of the country, which is below the equator. So, with that ideology, utaelewa mbona Mbiti anasema time ilikuwa ina move backwards. Let me explain it further to you. Do you remember the other time when we were reacting to a video about the Coriolis effect? Kuna huyu madam alikuwa ana describe, alikuwa pale hivyo kwa equator, ana describe if you walk towards the northern hemisphere, you will see that it is and you do that certain experiment ya Coriolis effect, uta realize it is rotating clockwise. On the other side, when you actually move towards the southern hemisphere, uta realize it is going on an anti-clockwise way. So it is like moving backwards. Na make sense kweli? Hivyo ndo mimi nilielewa, anti-clockwise na clockwise. That's why Mbiti is actually telling you guys that there is no future. I am sure if Mbiti interacted with other cultures that are not actually Bantus, angepata tuseme watu kama the Nandi, the Kipsigis, wangemwambia maybe time ina flow forward. Because only ali focus on the Bantu region, and we know the Bantus are around this equator region na huku hivi chini, even though kuna Bantus wengine wametoka from the northern hemisphere. So let's rewatch that video. Coriolis effect.
Did you know that being at the equator is weird? Because this guy shows us some crazy physics that happen here. I'm currently in Kenya, one of the only 13 countries in the world where the equator passes through, an imaginary line that divides the world into sides. This line passes through 4 different towns in Kenya, and as we were taking a ride towards north, we saw this sign at 6,389 feet, where the GPS is 00 degrees. And here, this man shows us some crazy physics that makes me want to go back to school.
So this is exactly the equator. You know, equator is an imaginary line which goes all the way from east to west. So equator divides the world into 2 equal hemispheres. So this is the northern hemisphere, this side is the southern hemisphere. So we have a demonstration here on how water is affected by the line of the equator when we move to the north, when we move to the south, and when we come exactly on the line.
On one side, water will spin on the right side, and you take steps over the line to the other side, water spins to the left. What? And the craziest of all, standing right in the middle, there is no movement at all. And they call this the Coriolis effect. For as crazy as this was, I had to ask you a question. What do you think? Is this equator effect a real thing? And how is this possible? Let me know on the comments below.
From Mbiti's perspective, he might have grown in this environment kwenye they had actually discovered that their environment in a move counterclockwise, so everything was actually backwards. But this theory falls short of time, because now with the integration of technology, with the integration of the English language, we can actually understand each other and borrow from other cultures to understand the whole perspective. Other than that, BTP hapo hivyo amekuonyesha venye we were falling short of describing our future, and I think that is one thing that is continuing still with this generation yenye tuko. We barely think about the future. Ukiangalia hapa hivi msee mmoja akiomoka kwa familia utasikia gana itishwa the family task. So in short, inabidi ukiomoka unaangalia nyuma uanze kuvuruta watu wenyu ndio muomoke nyi wote. Instead, ukiomoka unafaa create a better future so that your offspring wataendelea pia ku create a better future. Hii ideology ya creating generational wealth. And generational wealth comes from planning, comes from thinking about the future. So if the future is the shadow according to Mbiti, then you guys as Africans, we actually need to embrace that shadow. And without further ado, YouTube thinks you might be interested in the video on your screen at the moment. Click on that video. I'm waiting to see you on the next one.